look, there's two ways of viewing it. It's either why can't I do this? Like why are you saying like do you think I can? Do I think I can repeat this or do I anything like that? Or there's the way of looking at it, which I've taken and had a stranglehold on the last couple of years of you don't think I can do this, watch me. And that's what I'm taking in. It's that little bit of a mindset tweak of never concerned with what everyone else is thinking, unless they think that I can't do it, and then I'm going to prove them wrong. And that's the biggest thing. It's easy to come back from failure. It's very hard to kind of continue that positive and kind of coming off the successful seasons and stuff. And luckily, I was able to kind of build off that last year, and that was the first year that I'd really had that really breakout year where everyone was telling me, "Hey, you can't do it again. There's no way you can do that again." It was a flash in the pan. It was that fluky year. You're going to go back to being the same guy, normal guy next year, and I took that to heart and I took it personally, and I made sure that that was kind of my agenda of making sure that I could prove every single person wrong and repeat my successes.
You talk about sort of the intangibles that led to that run of the sort of success all coming together. But baseball is about as analytical as a sport can get. Can you look at your 2019 season, 2020 season, and see something fantastically different, like a different spin rate or a different mile per hour, a different velocity on one of your pitches, something big that changed that might have also kind of gone along with the intangibles?
Yeah, so I mean, the last two seamer I threw was in May. I scrapped it completely in May. I just wasn't having any success with it. I was giving up contact, whether it be weak or whether it be hard, it was just contact. And I was looking at that point, my four seam wasn't. And so I'm wondering, sitting there wondering, like, okay, well, why is this giving up contact when the other one isn't? Let's take that away and see how it goes. And when I took that away, all of a sudden, my fastball velocity started increasing. My spin rate started increasing. My breaking ball swing and miss started increasing. It wasn't necessarily the movement on the breaking balls that changed. It was just all of a sudden, because I was sticking with that four seam, I had that different variant that was coming off it. And for whatever reason, that's just coincided with everything kind of going in that right direction of velocity kind of ticking up and everything kind of plays off that. So with the velocity ticking up, the breaking balls had a little bit more bite. I started throwing a lot more curveballs as well, just to add those three different speeds. So all of a sudden, I've got my fastball, then I've got the middle range slider, and then the slower curveball, and it's all of a sudden you're kind of mixing and matching speeds and different eye levels. And the biggest thing to me was just, why am I overthinking the way I pitch? If a guy swings and misses at a fastball, why do I all of a sudden assume that they're going to be sitting on the fastball, they're going to be able to get it? So I stopped thinking that and be like, okay, you just swung and missed at my fastball. You're going to get it again until you can prove to me that you can touch it. And that's just, as a reliever, it simplifies the game a lot more, and it just makes it a lot easier to kind of go out there and it's, yeah, you're going to go, you remember the past successes you've had against guys, you just stick to those strengths.
Liam, you're joining us from Florida. Is this your off season home now? Has this become where you guys live in the off season?
Yeah, we've been down here. We bought this place in 2017. I love it down here. It's great. It's you don't really get too much of a winter. In our little cul-de-sac it's a great group of people down here as well. They're all a couple of them are snowbirds, a couple of them have moved down from different places and come down. Funnily enough, the street is pretty much an Illinois street for whatever reason. There's a bunch of Chicago residents out here, so they come down and it's just a good group. It's a good group down here. They're all a little bit they're all a little bit older than Christy and I, but we have a great time, and we've got dinner lined up with one of the couples earlier, actually next week, and we'll get down and just kind of gas bag and talk and make fun of everybody else.
It's so funny you say that, and Tom and I, and I'm sure Christy's, being Canadian, has told you what you just said is like, we can't do it right now. You know what I mean? Like we're in lockdown. We're in stay at home, only go to work. Restaurants, you can't eat in restaurants. We can't do this. We can't do that right now. From what I understand, a lot of the states, including Florida, I mean, it's pretty wide open
So
now,
when we
isn't
were
it?
in Chicago, it was mask mandates every time you leave the house. It was no indoor dining. It was limiting traffic and travel and all of that sort of stuff. So like a lot of states are on the Illinois track. Florida's the Wild West. Florida's pretty much completely open. It's terrifying when we came back from California or when we're in Illinois. It's just, yeah, it's a little terrifying. I always wear a mask no matter where I go. In stores, a lot of places in stores are making people wear masks. Just their kind of company policy. But yeah, I mean, there's a lot of restaurants you can eat in at now, and it is somewhat terrifying because of the way everything's going, especially in Florida. It's hasn't been one of the better states, but yeah, obviously it's you look at Australia. Australia's pretty much wide back open because they stamped it out very, very strictly at the start of it. They shut down domestic borders. They shut down domestic travel. So if you were going to go from the state of Victoria to Western Australia, it was a 14-day mandatory quarantine where you went to the hotel and they didn't even give you a room key. You just sat in the hotel for 14 days. That was it. You weren't allowed to do anything else. So they Australia pretty much Australia and New Zealand did a very good job of kind of limiting that, and they're doing all right. But yeah, America's not as good as some of the other countries that have had everything going on. But yeah, Christy and I pretty much keep to ourselves a lot. We keep to the little group that's down here that all pretty much do the same thing. We don't go out at all. We stick around the house, and anytime we leave, it's pretty much to get groceries, and that's about it. And for me, the only time I leave the house is either to get coffee or to throw, and that's legitimately the only time I ever leave the house.
You know, it's funny you bring up Australia and kind of the wide differences between the reality between Australia and America right now. We have now just ended what seems like just a forever process of electing a new president in America. I'm not going to ask you who you voted for. I'm not going to ask you anything political, except for, as an Australian, what's the U.S. election like to watch? Because I know quite a bit about Australian politics. It's very similar to Canadian, and it's vastly different than how they, what's it like for you sitting back and watching, or do you just try and avoid it altogether?
No, I mean, I watch. I can't vote, so I'm not an American citizen, so I can't vote. So I had no say in the matter or anything like that. The biggest thing that always blows my mind is, one, how much both sides trash talk each other. It's just like, it's never about their own policies. It's always about bashing the other person, which is always blows my mind that. And then the other one is like they were talking about record turnout and all this, and I'm like, okay, that's literally less than a third of the country voted, and that's a record turnout. How is that possible? Australia's got mandatory voting. If you don't vote, you get fined. It's just,
Really?
yeah. I mean, it's like, if you have your say, so there's no one that can say that they didn't have their voice heard, or there's no one that said anything along these lines. But I mean, it's going to be tough with one, a country the size of the US, two, with the political nature of absolutely everything that goes on internationally, from whoever becomes president of the US as well, is always an interesting thing. But no, I look at it, and obviously I'm Australian, so I look at, one of the first things I always look at is immigration policies. I always look at immigration because it directly affects me. That's just one thing I always look at. I can't vote anyway, so it doesn't matter. I just like knowing what's going on. But it was fascinating and terrifying, and a mixture of emotions going through the entire process. And I mean, I'm glad it's finally over. I'm glad for the next 4 years we can kind of relax it somewhat about whoever's in office, about moving forward. And at the end of the day, you just got to trust in the current guy to do the best thing for the country, and hopefully that works out.
Okay, one political question for you. What has been your favorite Bernie Sanders meme so far?
Oh, I mean,
there's been some good ones. I mean, he's everywhere.
There has been some good ones. There's been there was one that I saw from my my fantasy hockey group text, that it was just a guy walking around, and he flung out a lawn chair to sit on the side, and then Bernie Sanders is sitting in it.
Yes, I saw that
one. A little
one.
moving gift.
That one is awesome.
That was that one. But yeah, it's I mean, he's practical. At the end of the day, it's you coming out. It's cold. Why just dress up? Let's figure it out. We've all been in sweatpants for the last 8 months, so let the guy be comfortable.
You know what I think would be funny if someone did either, and I think they've already done, have someone, home plate lady at Rogers Center, the old lady that's,
oh yeah,
they put him beside her. That. But I think would be really cool is to have him in the Houston Astros dugout sitting in front of a trash can. To me, that would be.
You could go that way. I was more thinking of Marlins man. Put him next to Marlins man. A little bit more, or just have him sitting out by himself in like what was it, in Colorado a couple of years ago? There was that one guy. It was sleeting and raining, and there was one guy still in the grandstands up there. So put him out there with him. Or we had Dallas Braden from the A's. We had him out in the very, very top-notch corner of the stadium one day, and they showed him on TV. And then all of a sudden, you just see a procession line of people going up there to sign. This is a couple of years ago now, but yeah, there's definitely some good ones floating around, and he seems to have taken it in a good stride, which is always nice.
With the passing of Hank Aaron, It brought back a lot of memories and a lot of stories about what he had to deal with and the racism that he faced when he was chasing Babe Ruth's, home run record. And as much as we'd like to think that our society has made a lot of strides since then, I think what we've seen over the last 4 years is that there's still a lot of work to do. And I know you and Chrissy are huge advocates for bullying and just being good people. Are you a little, I don't know, surprised, but concerned with the amount of hatred that seems to be going out in the world right now? I mean, and you mentioned all the trash talking we're seeing. Families are being ripped apart by who they voted for.
Yeah, it's a tough thing. Obviously, you see what guys have dealt with in the past, and you're like, okay, it was in the past. It's never going to happen again. But then you see certain things, and it's almost like when it's like a fresh layer of snow that's come over that's just covered it up, and it's still there. It's still that seedy underbelly. It's still happening, but everybody chooses to look at the fresh bit of snow on top and not realize how it actually does affect absolutely everybody, whether it be a race thing, whether it be an orientation thing, whether it be a country that they come from. It's unfortunate that people can't get through their own heads that just because they may look differently or they sound differently or they talk a different language or they like a different sex, it doesn't change the fact that they're still a human being. Treat human beings with dignity, and you're going to get treated the same in return. It's unfortunate. I'm very, I shouldn't say pleased with the movement of last year, but it's about time that something gets done. It's unfortunate that it took what it took to happen, but it's just I don't understand how in this day and age people don't understand other people. They don't give anyone else the benefit of the doubt. They just look at it. Okay, you're different from me, so obviously you're wrong and I'm right. Let's have a discussion. Let's have a discussion and figure out like what. Okay, well, why do you view it that way? Why do you view it this way? Like there's certain we've got two different political parties in our little area, and it's just like, okay, well, why did you vote for him and why did you vote for him? I don't care if you voted red or blue, but have a reason of why you did it, not just because it's not the other guy or it's because you've been this way your entire life. Like have some actually substance to this discussions you're having. It's the same way with race, with orientation. I feel like it's so sad that it's come to any of this. I mean, it's the fact that I never got to the point of I didn't understand it, and it's the misconceptions that need to change. It starts in the school systems. It starts making sure that okay, you see a certain type of person, you don't make that snap judgment. You take away those snap judgments, people get along, and they're all brought in by culture. They're all brought in in the school systems or something that's just isn't taken care of the right way as a young kid, and it's an unfortunate way that the world is turning. But I'm glad that the discussions are open and people are listening.
Do you think, especially with the passing of Hank Aaron, actually as we record this today, do you think Major League Baseball is doing a good enough job of being a leader in that push against this just seemingly unending tide of racism and of negativity? They have in the past, for sure. But do you think MLB is doing a good enough job now of trying to even that playing field?
I think they're trying, but unfortunately, look at the numbers. Look at the amount of people of color in executive jobs in baseball. Look at the people of color who play the game as actual players or coaching staff. It is drastically different than what it should be. It's drastically off from what it needs to be, and that may or may not be an opportunity-based thing. That may or may not be the fact that they're not giving enough. They're not doing enough in urban areas or in cities or around the world for different opportunities to arise for certain kids playing the game to actually make a career out of this and make a push for it. Or it could just be the fact that it could be an opportunity. Okay, there's two kids playing in AAA, and all of a sudden they've got pretty good numbers. They're both the same, and they choose one over the other. And all of a sudden, it's just I'm not asking them to make sure that the minorities get to the big leagues or make sure that the white guys get to the big leagues. It's making sure that it doesn't matter what they look like. It doesn't matter what their name sounds like. It doesn't matter what language they speak. The better player should always go up no matter what. And that's just what we need to do. It's always about we just need to level the playing field. It's an unfortunate kind of trend that when you really look around, you look at the numbers, it's unfortunate. It's the same way with school funding. It's just why is this such big separation between certain neighborhoods and certain areas in school funding? It's unacceptable.
And a lot of the strides we've made over the years, and if you were to go 5-6 years ago even into a major league clubhouse, I mean, yeah, you would probably, and I saw this with the Jays, right? The Dominican players would gather together and talk because of their language, and the American players would gather and talk over here, but they were still teammates and it was still a group. I wonder now, because regardless of where you work or what you do, you're going to have, and I see this biggest divide now is you're either a Trump person or you're not a Trump person. And it seems that the two sides are having trouble even getting along. Is this something that, have you seen any of this in a clubhouse, or are you worried that there's going to be, this guy here is a Trump guy and this guy here is totally not a Trump guy, and it's going to cause friction amongst
Yeah, I mean, we saw a little bit
personalities?
of this last year with Oakland. There was differing political views, those different personalities, but a lot of the time it's you have these discussions and you leave those discussions as soon as you leave it. Like I have multiple discussions with certain guys, and it was very constructive. Like you'd hear their side, they'd hear my side, and then all of a sudden we may not agree on the exact things that we're looking at, but as soon as that conversation's over, you turn on to the next thing. You have those conversations, you learn about someone, but you don't hold that grudge against them. And right now it's people holding grudges. It's that grudge. Okay, well, you're a Trumper, or you're a Democrat, or you're a Biden fan, or you're whatever it is. And it's so divided that nobody wants to hear the other side. And as soon as they hear that that's what they're on the opposite side, they're immediately either a terrible person, or they don't know what's going on, or they're anti-American, or they're whatever you want to say. It's just people don't kind of see both sides. Like there was certain articles that I'd read, and it was whether it be on a certain news channel or another news channel, you'd make sure to do your research. Be like, is this actually true, or is this just quote unquote fake news? And it's just a certain different spin on what's actually happening. But I mean, you guys know about it being in the media and everything. It's this, you could say one statement and you like pronunciate one different word out of a 15-page statement, and all of a sudden it completely changes the way it reads, the way it sounds, the way it kind of could be politically viewed. And we're living in such a time where every little thing is so scrutinized today that it's unfortunate. But no, we had some very constructive kind of conversations in the clubhouse this year, and it's just when people don't go into it with that ego of I'm right, you're wrong. People tend to listen to each other, which is nice.
You're coming at baseball from a very different perspective than basically anybody else in the majors. Traveling from Australia, playing where you have. But I think it's safe to say that 2020, there was never a season like it before. You just talked about the guys in the clubhouse, and Oakland made it through. And what was that experience like? How was the clubhouse? How was this season for you? From a personal level, from a performance level, it was obviously great. But from a personal level, how did you guys cope? How did the team cope?
Yeah, it was obviously a different time. We were lucky in the fact that this is the first year we're able to use the Raiders clubhouse, which is a drastically larger space. So we went
Oh
from
man,
having yeah, we're from having a clubhouse which is barely fitting enough guy, like one to a locker, to all of a sudden being in the Raiders clubhouse where you could almost every single person had a locker, a spare locker on either side of them. So we're lucky in the fact that we had a lot of space. We're lucky in the fact that we've got a very enigmatic and exciting team that wanted to win, and they wanted to, no matter what happened, they had everybody's back at every point. But yeah, it was definitely different having to consistently wear masks, which I'm not opposed to, but certain guys weren't a big fan of. We had to sit in the stands, which in Oakland isn't great because the stands in the bullpen aren't always the most comfortable. We had the shades, which were necessary, but we were constantly sitting in the sun because the angle of the shades when the games were actually on, we didn't have enough shading for the actual players in the bullpen. So that was tough. But I mean, it's you take everything with stride. We get to play a game for a living, and we actually got to go to our job. There was a lot of people out there that didn't. There were a lot of people out there that were struggling, and we were lucky enough to be a part of something that could actually perform and do what we needed to do. And once that got through to a lot of people's heads, it was like, suck it up. It's 3 months out of our lives. Let's suck it up and not complain and take care of business and hopefully win a ring. Unfortunately, we weren't able to get all the way through. But once you got that through to a lot of people, it was just like, look, if you don't like it, go home. If you don't like it, piss off. It's not that hard. If you want to continue to complain about absolutely everything, go home. And so
I,
there wasn't anybody in our team that did. But yeah, you just deal with it. You handle it up. You deal with it. I mean, it's not that.
How were the players looked at that decided to opt out of the season? Were most guys cool with that and say, "Look, I understand you don't feel safe. You're going to take the year off," or was there a lot of animosity among some that really, like, why are you taking this time off?
Yeah, like Oakland didn't have anybody that opted out, so we don't have any like personal kind of views on it. It may have been different on a team. Like it all depends on the situation. If you're on a team that had a chance to win, you opted out. I don't know how those guys are dealing, or if you're on a team that kind of wasn't looking at doing anything, or you just were unsure of how it was going. It's hard to kind of criticize anybody for that because it's their own personal safety. It's the same way whether you get guys who wear a seatbelt or not wear a seatbelt, whether it be legal or illegal. It's just certain things where certain guys take more precautions than others, and this is one of those things. It's a precautionary thing, and if you feel like you just don't feel comfortable, why put yourself through that stress? Why put your family through that stress of you being gone?
You know, how have the Chicago White Sox given you an idea of what the season's going to be like going into it this year? Like, obviously, last year was completely different, and they were kind of making it up as it goes. But you know, are we beginning the process to get ready to the season already, or if we haven't, is there a roadmap in place for this year?
Yeah, I mean, spring training starts on the 17th. We haven't heard anything otherwise from both MLB and the union. We haven't heard anything other than we're going to start on time. We proved that we could get through 60-game season last year, which means that this year, with the way that the NHL is going, the way that the NFL, the NBA are all doing it, there's no reason that we shouldn't be able to get a full 162-game season in. It may have to be a little bit more like last year at the start of the year, depending on how these vaccine rollouts go. And
You mentioned just now your liver condition. I'm sure a lot of fans don't even know what you're talking about. Is there anything that you're willing to
yeah,
share
I've
about
got
your liver condition?
I've got an autoimmune disease in my liver. Got diagnosed actually re-diagnosed in 2015 when I was with the Blue Jays, and since that day I haven't picked up a drink. But yeah, I was on the high risk list this last year, and I very well could have opted out and still been paid, still got service time, still got everything, and still being a free agent. But I mean, it's just that was never questioned. I was never questioning whether I should or shouldn't play. It's the game I love, and I want to make sure that I can play it as long as I can. And yeah, it's not a big. I'm very open with the fact that I have this condition. It doesn't change my day to day life, but it does. It is a little bit more of an immunity compromising disease that puts me in a high risk like case. But yeah, when I can get a vaccine, I'll get a vaccine. But other than that, it's something that I've been living with for six. When I got diagnosed in 2007, I had it for a couple of years. Then it went away, and then came back when I was with the Jays. And it is what it is. I take a pill a day. I manage my diet. I don't drink, and we'll be all good. And hopefully, there's no long-term issues.
I remember talking to you in the clubhouse in Baltimore.
After the Jays had clinched and everyone is boozing it up and partying, and I'm sure you can tell me at some point who actually threw me in that tank of ice water, but you weren't drinking. And I remember you, and at that point, I wasn't sure. I just thought you were just not a drinker. But as somebody, and I'm not saying you were an alcoholic before that, but I mean, as any young guy partying with a group of people, everyone drinking champagne, was that easy for you to past? Was there points where you were saying, "Oh man, a few sips ain't going to hurt me"? Like, how was that for you?
I mean, there's no, I have no qualms with the fact that I stopped drinking. It was a health thing. It wasn't a, like they said, I could still have a couple every now and then, but I don't see the point. Like, I'm not going to go out there. I'm not going to risk my future health because of anything like that. The clubbies out in Baltimore were happy enough to get me some. They ended up pulling some duels outside, so I had a little bit of that and then kind of passed it along. But yeah, I mean, it is what it is. I mean, it's nothing that I ever have the urge to do or the feel like I need to. It's just something that I just don't do anymore. It's not a difficult decision. It's just like staying away from something that you used to do occasionally, and like whether it be like carbs or chocolate or sweets or anything like that. It's a decision that you make, and I have no ever regrets of doing it. I don't care. My wife loves it because she's got a DD everywhere we go. So I always drive, so she can have a couple glasses of wine at dinner or something, anything like that, and then there's no risk of anything going on.
Well, I know a lot of people that have actually come from Australia or traveled to Australia at times, and giving up drinking is one thing, but having done that journey yourself, you've probably given up one or two things that you absolutely love that you can't get your hands on here in North America. Is there anything that was harder to give up than drinking that you missed from Australia that you wish you could get here?
Is it what? No, the biggest thing is I miss being on the right side of the car. There's that. But no, a lot of it's just food. Obviously, you miss your family. I wish I was there. There's certain ways of doing things that they're a little different, but the food's the biggest one. It's just I miss the food. There's certain things that you get over there that you just can't get over here, and it makes it a little harder. But at the end of the day, when I go back. We try and get back every other year for Christmas, and my family comes over the other years, and we split it that way. But yeah, it's just the food. Like I miss going back, and I miss just walking around, getting a coffee, and going in a meat pie, or walking down the shops and just seeing the old places you used to hang out at as a kid. It brings back that little nostalgia to it. But yeah, it's mainly the food, to be honest. It sucks a little bit sometimes with that stuff, but it is what it is. I mean, it probably helps me stay somewhat trim rather than eating the stuff down there as well.
My wife's from Newfoundland, and one thing that she to this day says she misses is the smell of the ocean. I don't know how close you were to the ocean in Australia, but you probably didn't have to go far to get to it. Is that something that and I mean, you kind of had it in the Bay Area, but it's not the same.
No, it's definitely not the same. I mean, my high school, I could throw a baseball from the field into the ocean. So we were pretty close. So
and I bet you were the only one who did that too, right? None of your friends threw baseballs.
So I was saying that today. I was at the local college down here in Fort Myers, FGCU, and I was throwing a bullpen, and I was talking about that. The coach asked me, was like, "Hey, did you play high school baseball?" I was like, "Yeah, we had a team for 1 year of my high school career. We came second in the state." I'm like, "Oh, that's pretty good." Yeah, we had two guys that had played baseball before on the team, and we came second. So it wasn't a great league, but yeah, it was. It was more of a football. We had a great sporting unit at the school, though. I was doing track and all that fun stuff, and playing football and all that. But yeah, we're close to the ocean. I do definitely miss the smell of the ocean. It's got a different. It hits that little bit differently when you're back home. So being able to kind of walk along the coast as the sun's setting and being able to see that, it's a cool vibe.
I would be remiss if I didn't mention to you, and
when you decided to sign with the Chicago White Sox, I'm sure somewhere through your mind you kind of said, okay, I need to make sure that this whole Tony La Russa thing is going to be cool, because I mean, he's gotten a lot of bad press lately, and you don't have to be a genius to see that. You have gotten to know him probably on a more personal level now. Did you kind of go in with a completely open mind, or were you kind of a little bit hesitant at first and thinking, okay, this guy needs to sell me that I'm cool with him?
So I know Tony from Animal Rescue Foundations. Hey, Mitchie.
oh,
There goes Mitchell.
good
So
timing.
I know him. Yeah, so I know him from his animal rescue. Tony La Russa's off in the Bay Area, so I know him because we've been dealing with that for the last several years. So I know him from that. Done certain things that he's been there, obviously running it, and then because he's known around the Bay Area because he was the manager of the A's and stuff. Every time he was in town, he'd come in, and so we'd have conversations and stuff. So we have a little bit of like the kind of passing knowledge of each other, and look, at the end of the day, he was one of the first kind of inventors of the closer, the actual closer's role. So I'm excited to be able to learn from him in that. Yeah, regardless of the bad press and what everything like that is, I know him as a different person than all that's coming around. So I just take my personal knowledge of him, what he's been able to do in the game of baseball as a whole, and that's forward to. And I told him on the Zoom calls and stuff, like, look, I'm excited about learning from you because you've been around this game a lot longer than everybody else. You've been around this game, you've got the old school mentality, and you're mixing it with the new age analytical side of things. And I think that's what baseball needs, is that mixture of the old school and the new school, and bringing it in, and rather than just going from old to new, bringing a mix of it with Ethan Katz, the pitching coach. He's more of a new age guy with the analytical side of things. Yeah, I'm excited about learning from both of those guys and bring an opportunity to kind of go to Chicago and hopefully win a ring and move forward that way. But my relationship with La Russa has been great. We've been texting back and forth, and I can't wait to actually get a chance to meet him and see him in a more professional role as being a manager.
You make such a good point about not knowing somebody until you know them. And last week we had Chris Colabello on, a guy that you're good buddies with, and I mean Chris has fought so hard to gain back his reputation. And those of us who know him on a personal level know the character he is, know that everything that he's been accused of is such total BS because it goes against everything that he believes in. As a friend, how hard is it for you to see, like even when we posted on social media that he's coming on, you get people, once a cheater, always a cheater, and this and that. And I'm like, oh my God, it's so frustrating because I really love the guy as a human being. And it really hurts me to see people not take this guy's word for it.
Yeah, I mean, not only like I've known Chris since 2013, I think it was, when we were both
In
with Minnesota.
Yeah.
So I've known him for years with that. Like I played in AAA with him, I played in the big leagues with him with the Twins and then with the Blue Jays, and like there was nothing going on ever. Like he was like guy who was very tentative. Like you'd go to like a juice shake, like a shake place, and he'd be like, but everyone else is getting protein added in, and he's like, no, I don't know where that protein is. It's like I have no idea what it is. I'm not going to do it. Like just give me a juice or something along those lines. So he's always been very, very stressed on those certain things about doing it. So this is why like it's so hard to believe that he maliciously went out and did anything along these lines. There's been cases where it's like there's certain guys that test positive through like complete knowing, like not knowing what's going into their body or anything like that. And I just, even him, he's so particular about certain things that go on. I mean, he's one of those guys. We still talk probably once a month during the season, during the off season. We still keep in touch regularly. Like I was at his wedding. I mean, he's just a really good person, and it's unfortunate that no matter what happens, every time his name's brought up, it gets trashed to the media, and it's just not necessarily media people anymore. It's just the people on social media that decide to think that they've never made a mistake in their lives, they've never done anything wrong. And when someone could very well be falsely accused of what Chris was accused of, that they just take it blindly. They don't know the guy. They don't know what the struggles he's been through. They don't know how much this weighs on him every single day about trying to get his name cleared, because there's a lot of reasoning that should be cleared, and hopefully that'll come up at some point, and he can get his name cleared, and everyone can just back off and figure it out. But as you said, with the bullying campaign stuff, where my wife and I do, this is a reason why. No matter what happens, all the positive spin you get, there's always going to be those people that are either upset with their own lives, or they just feel the need to put someone else down to make themselves better. And that's not the way of doing things. You just lift everybody up is going to bring everybody up with you. It's not kind of putting someone on a pedestal and then all of a sudden they're going to stamp on your face to push up that next level. It's making sure that everybody just treat people with respect, and they'll treat you back with respect. And that's the biggest thing.
I was thinking about it today because, as Barry mentioned, we're doing some promo for the episode for this weekend, and right away the trolls start. Just a few of them, but what do you think goes through someone's head? Like, why is it that someone would feel good? What I did was I directed them towards an article in, I believe it was the Washington Post from the summer, about the 21st player that has tested positive for this arcane 1980s steroid. And anything that you read about it, any interview that you read with anybody that has known Colabello, you're looking at it going, wow, this guy definitely didn't do this. Why do you think it is, though, that those people really persist and the trolls still, like, it feels good to them, maybe?
like
to
getting
throw
into the
out,
mind of
the-
a bully here, right? Is that what you're kind of?
Yeah, like what is it that turns a person into like what? I wouldn't feel good about throwing slag out about someone that I knew an awful lot about, but these are people doing it about a situation that they obviously haven't even read about in 5 years, 6 years. What do you think? Like, what makes someone like? I'm curious. Your perspective as a major leaguer, who's I'm sure been on the other side of trolls like this a lot.
Yeah, I mean,
Someone do
you
that.
look at it from a point of view. It's like all these people would never say anything face to face. They would never come out of their mind. They'd never even cross their minds about doing this face to face. But for whatever reason, as soon as you get behind a keyboard, you feel like you're entitled to make everyone else around you feel bad. You're entitled to make sure that you put everybody down because it furthers your agenda or whatever the reason is. If you don't have the guts to say it face to face, you shouldn't get on a keyboard and decide to like post about it then or there either. It's just it's the coward's way out. It's obviously there's something going on, and sometimes they've got their own issues that they're just trying to make themselves feel better by feeling like they are better than a professional athlete, or they're better than someone who they see on TV, or they're better than someone like that. But yeah, a lot of the time it's just they don't ever think about repercussions, and when you don't think about repercussions, all you think about is like I can say whatever I want. Nobody's gonna care. Everyone's gonna be on my side. It's unfortunate. Like it's unfortunate the fact that this is something that crosses people's mind. And it's the same way. Like this is what kids deal with in school. This is what kids deal with throughout their entire collegiate careers, and then they get into a certain place where all of a sudden they don't want to compete anymore. They don't want to be an athlete anymore because of the media spotlight or because of people trolling them because of maybe they had a bad game. So all of a sudden these guys who haven't picked up a ball in 50 years and they're completely out of shape think that it's great to pick on this kid. And it comes down to that. It's like at the end of the day, like you get all you put all the guys who made it to the big leagues together and they are still the top 1% of every single person who's ever picked up a baseball. It's not even like you're picking on the top 1% for actually doing their job. It's just, it's hard to wrap my head around because obviously I've dealt with certain people, like I've dealt with like, and unfortunately it comes a lot more when the more you succeed. So before 2018, like nobody really knew who I was. You get a couple of them saying that I was the avid fans of the team saying I was terrible and all that. But once you actually start succeeding, if you have a bad game, it's an absolute onslaught of just abuse that you get. And it's unfortunate the fact of the more you succeed, there's the more people waiting for you to fail and waiting to jump on you as soon as you do.
All right, we can't leave on a serious note, so we're gonna leave on a little bit of a fun note. Are you okay with that? So you're now a member of the Chicago. You're a member of the Chicago White Sox. So we need to know how much you know about the city you're going to be playing in. So it's time for a little Chicago trivia.
Jeez,
You ready?
No, jeez.
Okay. So what, Liam Hendricks, is the Loop?
The Loop is.
You'll hear a lot about.
Yeah, it was actually they talked about the Loop on Jeopardy the other night. Big fan of Jeopardy. So they didn't mention what the Loop actually was, but I'm pretty sure it's a highway/causeway area.
Yeah, you're kind of on the right track. It's the downtown area of Chicago, which is circled around by the transit authorities' elevated train tracks. So you'll see those trains.
The elevated train track. So it's not a highway specifically, but it's a mode of transport.
Yes. Okay, next question. Chicago has 2.7 million residents. 2.7 million, now two more with you and Christy, well, and the kiddies. Where does that rank in the largest cities of the United States?
Oh, I don't know where it ranks, but I
giving
found an
easy
interesting thing.
ones.
I had a trivia night the other night. Top five?
Mm-hmm.
Interesting. Like we had a trivia night the other night, and it was the city of Los Angeles has more a population higher than 41 other states. True or false? And it was actually true. The city of Los Angeles has a higher population than 41 different U.S. states. So, and Illinois was not above that. So 2.7 sounds, yeah, I'd say, I mean, are you saying it is in the top five?
Yes. So give me a number.
I mean, so it's not LA, it's not New York, it's not, I think it was, I'd say 4.
Oh, you were close.
You said New York. You said L.A. Chicago's third.
Good.
There you
Good
go.
for them. Okay.
The last U.S. president from Chicago. You better not get this one wrong.
I mean, it's Barack Obama. I've already asked for his jersey, a signed jersey.
You know, I learned from when I covered the Cubs World Series how many big time celebrities were Cubs fans. Like Eddie,
Yeah.
I met Eddie Vedder because of the White Sox. I met Bill Murray because of the Cubs. There's just a ton of them that are like big Cubs fans. I don't know what
Yeah.
celebrities call themselves White Sox fans, but we'll go on. So before, like the original ballpark, the ballpark that the White Sox played in through the 70s and 80s, what was that called?
Comiskey.
What neat little gimmicky thing did they have in the bleacher seats at Comiskey Park?
Well, I don't know about fans, but the fun trivia stuff. There's two different colored seats in the stands.
Okay.
One is for the Jim Thome 2008 playing game, 163 against the Twins. That's where his home run landed. There's another one, which is, I think it's Paul Konerko's grand slam in game, I want to say 5 of the 05 World Series.
These are all interesting and they're all true, but this is not where I was going.
They've got
Yes.
a bar right
There
next to the
was-
visitor's bullpen.
Okay.
Stop. You're not close. They had a shower in the bleacher seats. You had like a rope and you'd pull down the thing and you would get instantly showered for those hot days sitting out in the bleachers. Look it up. I do not
That is a
BS,
fun
Liam
fact.
Hendricks. Yes. Okay. And this one has nothing to do with Chicago, but what is the history of this?
History of this.
The snow goggles?
Yes.
I mean, the history
Of this particular
the
pair.
history- Is that the pair that you wore in
This
2015
particular
while
pair.
getting dunked
That's right. And you know
by
what?
someone who I'm not going to name?
The still smell of champagne.
The still smell of champagne.
They probably
They still
smell a little bit
of
like
champagne. And it was
mold
Mark
right now,
Burley.
too.
Yeah,
Mold
no,
and-
it's terrible. That's been the one good thing about the lockdown is I haven't had to go over and record in his basement because the whole basement stinks of those goggles.
Yeah, mine's in the garage, and I think it's
Yeah, they
starting to
do.
smoke out the garage a little bit. Like I've got the hat still. I've got my Blue Jays robe that's in my closet, which Marco Estrada, when he came over to the A's, bought everybody the A's robes as well. So I need to
That's
get
so
once
cool.
I
You know, that year was so memorable, man. And like, you know, we were just talking to Chris about this on the last show, and you know, he talked about the real moving pregame rah-rah meeting held by Munenori Kawasaki. And my God, you know, as we were all living through it, and I lived through it in a different way than you guys did, but as you're living through it, you're just living through it. When you take a step back, and it's now been, you know, 5 years, holy crap, you know, or 6 really since 2015. You look back and
Six, yeah.
and you look back and you go, holy crap, what an amazing time that was.
What an amazing time that was.
Yeah, I mean, I was talking about it the other day with somebody, and it was like we were a 500 team at the deadline. Like we were a
Yeah.
team that you would walk into that clubhouse, you'd think we'd never lost a game, but we were a 500 team. Like we were in the middle of the pack. We saw a chance that we could take advantage of the division. And I mean, hats off to Alex Anthopoulos in the front office of going out and bringing in Tulowitzki and LaTroy Hawkins and Mark Lowe and David Price and bring in these pieces, because that was the catalyst right there. Those guys, as soon as they came into the clubhouse,
You left the Jays. They sent you to Kansas City briefly for Danny Valencia, and then you get yourself back onto the Toronto Blue Jays roster. Get traded back there. What do you remember about that day? Was that like the most like? Was it surreal? Were you kind of questioning it, going, seriously, I'm going back?
Well, I know Danny very well. I was with him with the Twins. Our wives are actually really, really close. They talk almost every single day. And I still remember Danny is like, okay, yeah, you've been traded to the Blue Jays for Liam Hendricks. And he goes, and who else? That was one of the things he remembered because it was me and Eric Kratz. And so then, yeah, I went to Kansas City, and that was such a fantastic experience for me, obviously, getting a chance to. That point, I was actually contemplating Korea. I was contemplating going to Japan, contemplating all these other venues because I had no idea what was going to happen. My numbers weren't great. I showed some flashes, but not enough for a team to really take advantage of it. But the biggest thing with going back to the Blue Jays in 2015 was the transparency that the front office and the management gave me. When I went there, I got to spring training. I wasn't sure what my role was going to be. They called me into the office and said, "Look, you're not making the team as a starter. You're going to make it out of the bullpen. Are you okay with this?" I'm like, I just want to make the team. Whatever you tell me, I'm going to do. And I appreciate them coming to me early and being like, "Hey, look, we don't want to set you up to be like, okay, you're in it's a demotion or anything like that. We see a viable option for you in the bullpen. And this is what we're going to do." And luckily enough, I was able to kind of get that role and take it and run with it. And Bob's your uncle. Here we are. But yeah, it was definitely a different time period. It was like when the Jays reached out this time. I'm like, oh, it's the third time's the charm. We're going to go back again and try and finish off this chance to try and get a ring. But didn't quite come to fruition. But no, the Blue Jays will always hold a special place in both mine and Christy's hearts of being so accepting. Then seeing Montreal beat Toronto in the first game of the season that year. It's always nice. I've got my
Give it up,
I got
man.
my hat.
Give it up.
Hey, I mean, Montreal's coming out to play. Did you see the game? The couple games against Vancouver and Edmonton? They're doing it right now.
Yeah, I don't hate them. I'll tell you that. Okay, before we go, I'm going to share a stupid dad joke for you. Okay, but in which you can tell your teammates and they'll laugh their asses off. But before that, can you just show our viewers the incredible man bun that you're now sporting? Because I saw that as you tilted your head. Oh, is this approved?
Oh yeah, it's up there.
Is this been approved by Christy?
Christy's actually the hairdresser that we've been using.
Oh.
So I haven't had when the pandemic hit, I was just growing my hair out, and then I had a little bit of it last year, and it kind of just stuck around. And yeah, she's been into my hairdresser, and because we just give her the clippers and she goes up to a certain point, we've kind of let everything else grow out. So it's up there, but I wear a hat for a living. So at the end of the day, if
That's
I don't,
true.
no one has to see it. So
So many ball players go bald early. I think there's something about the air not getting to your heads.
it could be that. It could be the fact that we're just in the sun a lot, especially in Oakland. It could be the fact that we're just all egotistical. It could be that as well. It could be a whole slew of things. I mean, it's maybe the leather on the baseballs is bringing about male pattern baldness. Who knows? Who knows?
I remember the first time I saw a player who was bald, and because you never know because they wear the hats and they take their hat off, and you're like, oh my God, he's bald. And I think it may have been Cal Ripken was the first one. I went, oh, he's bald. You know?
But
Yeah, it's always fun when guys take their hat off because, like, if I clean up on the sides, you'd never tell them, and all of a sudden I take my hat off, and you're like, oh God, it looks like a raccoon died.
Okay.
Are you ready? And Tom's already heard this stupid joke, but it's cute. Okay, you ready for it? So Liam, did you hear that Donald Trump's not allowed anywhere near the White House anymore? It's strictly for Biden.
Oh Jesus.
Yeah, I'm sorry you had to hear that.
Yeah, that's tough. I mean, But I mean, if you want to talk about it, it's Trudeau.
Oh!
Oh,
With that said,
we can do this.
by the way, nobody does a better Liam Hendricks or Munenori or Jose Bautista impersonation than Chris Colabello. He must have been so much
Really?
fun in that clubhouse.
Yeah, CC was great. I mean, he used to sit with very cross-legged. He sits exactly the same as his dad. So
Oh,
it sits the
Lou,
exact same as old Sweet Lou.
love Lou.
But yeah, it's yeah. I still remember getting into his car. We're going to Toronto FC game, and it's Chris and I like get into the back seat, and he's got the TVs and the headrest in the back seat. We're sitting there, and all of a sudden, true Pitch Perfect comes on. He has the disc of Pitch Perfect playing in his car nonstop.
Oh, wait till he
So
finds out. I'm gonna text him right now. and
oh, he'll
ask
tell
him
you.
if
Like,
he's-
I guarantee what he'll tell you. It was the grading system. He went into like if you're expecting this movie to be an 8 out of 10 and it's a 9 out of 10, that's only a +1. But if you go into it thinking it's going to be a 3 or a 4 and all of a sudden it's a 7 or an 8, that's a +4 or a +5, and all of a sudden that's how he graded it. So Pitch Perfect was one of those movies where he wasn't expecting much, and it blew him away. So it was very high on the plus negative scale. So it was that's how he's gonna talk about it for sure.